Hi guys, Jen here with Mike's Camera. I have Anabel DFlux here with me today. She's a great Sigma ambassador. Is doing a couple of workshops with us. So I wanted to kind of show her off a little and kind of hear her story. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Anabel.
Well, I have been a photographer officially for about 16 years now, and I say officially because the moment you start collecting money is when I start saying, okay, I'm officially doing this as a business.
Yes.
And I actually started with pets, even though I really diversified my portfolio and do photograph a lot of different subjects. So I joke that I'm the photographer without a niche, but technically I do have a niche. I photograph living subjects, whether it's people or animals.
Okay,
but
it's pretty broad.
Yeah, so I was like, well, I don't do real estate, so at least I can narrow it down there. But I actually started with animals because I grew up with a love of animals. That's just, I was born into a house with animals. I have lived every day of my life with some sort of animal in my house. So it was kind of natural to start using them as subjects. And I learned a lot of what I do from just visiting local dog parks as a kid and just photographing the animals interacting with one another and getting to know the local community. And through getting to know the local community, I got pulled into photographing dog sports, as you can see in some of the images that
up here behind
are
us.
back here. I started with dog agility, which is where dogs go over various obstacles on a timed course, and moved on to other sports. But
wants to explore, huh?
She does. So I was like, speaking of sports, it's already a sport just to keep her in one place. But that kind of opened up the pet photography world to me because I started working a lot for various clubs under the American Kennel Club. So I would travel around photographing sporting events and doing portraits of the canine athletes. And it's kind of just how I went from there. I'm a big believer in kind of marketing with your local community because you never know what doors will open with that. And very fortunately ended up continuing to do that the whole time.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Cool. And so how did you come to be a Sigma ambassador?
Oh, I am the biggest fan of the cold pitch. And by cold pitch, I mean approaching the company at a booth at a trade show going, I want to teach for you, and just kind of continuously saying that. And luckily, Sigma is very, very big on the education side of the business. They love to host workshops all over the country and help people kind of do what it is that they want to do and create the vision that they have in their minds. And I am a self-taught photographer. I did go to college, I did go to university, but I did not study photography. So I felt like I had a little bit of a different approach when I teach something that I had to kind of figure out on my own by clicking all the buttons, seeing what they do. Eventually, I did kind of self-educate myself on, okay, why am I clicking these buttons and why are they doing what they're doing? But I kind of felt that it gives me a different kind of an eye for teaching because I remember how I kind of deduced and simplified certain things that would otherwise be rather complicated. And the problem that I had, though, is that I just didn't have a large platform to teach. I was teaching local classes, I was teaching at local dealers, and it wasn't entirely the platform that I wanted because I wanted to reach kind of a broader audience and felt like I had something that I could teach and give them. And Sigma has been so incredible to give me the opportunity to travel and kind of share my knowledge and my story with people all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen more of the United States because of Sigma than I ever would have on my own.
Yeah, yes, that's very true. Do you get to travel outside of the United States too?
I have, not with Sigma specifically. I have with other clients. I've traveled to various parts of Europe. Sigma has kind of kept me more nationwide, but that's totally okay because that means I can bring her along. I can't bring her along to international flights. I do not know how I would manage her on a 10-hour flight.
Be a long flight.
We did 6 as our longest to Boston, but 10 hours is a little much.
That's very true. Cool. So you were saying before, what age did you actually start photographing? Like, do you remember when you picked up a camera and were like,
I was 8 years old.
Wow.
I was pretty little when I picked up the camera. I was always kind of the artistic oddball in my family because my family is a family of entrepreneurs, which is what I feel gave me a lot of my business sense and being able to run a photography business without any, at the time, formal education on the business front. I later went on to get a bachelor's in business administration to kind of teach myself what it's like to run a company. But I'd always been very artistic, and I've kind of, since I was very, very little, dove into a variety of artistic mediums, and photography was one that I hadn't explored yet, simply because I didn't have a camera. So at 8 years old, my grandfather bought me this little red point and shoot from Target, if you remember when Target had their own brand of cameras.
I do, yes.
And just a little retractable lens.
Aww.
And I didn't know what I was doing with it. But the very first thing I said is, I want to go to the zoo. So my parents took me to the zoo with this little point and shoot camera, and I just fell in love with it. Unfortunately, I abandoned all other creative pursuits and just went solely into photography. And then when I was about 12 or 13 is when I asked my mom for what I call a real camera. At the time, a DSLR, because mirrorless had not been invented yet. So my mom bought me a Canon Rebel, the very first Canon Rebel that they had. I know they have so many versions of it now, but it was the very first one they had. And I bought a Sigma lens. It was an old 70-200, which was so heavy for a 13-year-old.
I'm sure.
But that lens served me well for so many, I mean, to this day I use the 70-200, but I've upgraded to the lighter one for the mirrorless system.
Yes, yes.
But at the time, all lenses were that heavy because, kind of innovation and technological advancements come much later.
Right. Yes.
So I do joke when people pick up lenses now and go, "This is so heavy," and I go, "You have no idea what I had to carry
right
at the time."
Right.
But I just took that lens, and honestly, that was the only lens I owned for so many years. Aww. And found that it was just so versatile, and it worked so well for the sport photos. These were taken with a 70-200. And then I started upgrading to all of the other types of lenses, of course.
Yes,
and the collection just grew and grew and grew.
Yes, yes. I agree, though. The mirrorless, I switched a couple of years ago as well, and huge weight difference.
Huge.
I'm I don't know why I had a DSLR for over 10 years.
I still have my DSLR, to be fair. Yeah, I still have a 1DX Mark II.
Yeah.
That I do really love.
Yes, that is a great camera.
But, I do like my Sony mirrorless cameras. I
have Sony too.
And now there's an even smaller one. There's the Sigma BF, which is even tinier than that.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
It's like ultimate pocket lens.
Right? Yeah, so you played with the BF a little bit?
I have, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And of course, she was the first model, now that she's off exploring.
Can you tell me more about your experience with the BF camera?
Absolutely. So the first time that I got to hold it was at a kind of a showcase in Burbank, because I forgot to preface that I am in Los Angeles.
Oh.
So
okay.
Not too far of a travel from Colorado, but still. And we had the opportunity to play with it at that showcase, in which case, of course, I brought my dog, because who else would I test the camera on? And the fact that it felt so comfortable in my hand was just incredible, because I know that in visual appearance, I don't know if anyone looks at it and go, how comfortable is this to hold? But the material is beautiful. There's that little thumb area, so it is very comfortable to hold. I love the incredibly modern design, because if you look at all the technology that we use now, whether it's our new laptops, our phones, everything really has that kind of sleek yet compact design. I feel like that just fits in so beautifully. It's definitely kind of a head turner.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that it has all these color grades and presets kind of already in there, and I'm a big believer that the less time you spend on the computer and the more time you go out there shooting is to the benefit. Yes. I mean, I'm not, telling anyone that you can't have fun editing, and there's people who really do enjoy that editing process. I wish I was one of them. I am very much, I just want to be out there actually shooting. So it is beautiful when you can just do everything in camera right off the bat.
Yes.
And have it ready to go.
That's a pretty good feature to have.
Yeah.
Especially for people like you who are constantly traveling, constantly on the go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also that camera is it's so small that it's so easy for me to put it in a purse. Because another big thing that I always think of when I travel is that I don't want it to look like I'm carrying camera equipment.
That too.
You don't want really a camera bag that screams. So there's several $1,000s of gear in here. I'm very much I'm going to use a regular purse or a regular backpack and make it very nondescript.
Yeah.
And a camera like that, you don't even need a case for it. You can just, and it's fine.
It's true.
I also put a lot of my gear through the ringer because I'm not always the nicest to my equipment. I mean, I always say, like, if it can't survive me, then it doesn't belong in my home. But all the lenses and that camera, I mean, it'll survive just fine. And plus, there's a silver version, which is kind of cool. And silver versions of the I-series lenses. And I use the I-series a lot when I travel because they are my pocket lens. I can legitimately put them in the pocket of my yoga pants.
Wow.
So I like to. Now you want back up?
She's like, I explored. I'm good.
And they are smaller than the dog, so that's also my prerequisite.
Yeah.
So the fact that they have kind of new versions of those lenses to fit on the BF camera in terms of color, the silver is really, really nice.
Yes, yes, I believe that. Yeah. So like with pet photography, like what lenses do you recommend with Sigma particularly?
Always a good question because I can give you a list of like 30. But in all actuality, the best lenses that I find for pet photography, if you're not doing something very niche and you're doing kind of what is the all-around, all-purpose lenses, I would say would be standard focal lengths and kind of shorter telephoto lengths. I know there's a lot of thought about getting kind of the longer ones, like 100 to 600 millimeters, for example, which I have used as well. But most of the time, you are kind of interacting in a much closer proximity to animals, especially if you're photographing dogs or you're photographing very large animals like horses. So for telephotos, highly recommend the Sigma 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8 version 2 because it is lighter and smaller, the Sport series.
Okay.
And in terms of kind of the portrait lenses, I'm a big, big lover of prime lenses. So I love the 35 millimeter f1.2, the 85 millimeter f1.4, which funny enough, if I were to bring only one lens with me, I do tend to opt for an 85 1.4 because although it is a telephoto lens, it is kind of the perfect focal length to capture various types of action, allow that animal to switch between I'm laying down for a portrait to I'm running around and playing with a toy. And of course, it is kind of traditionally known as the portrait lens because of that beautiful optic compression. But as a shallow depth of field photographer, I love those bokehs. 50 millimeter 1.2. Hello.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. When I saw Sigma come out with that, I'm like, okay, that's the first on the wish list.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just the most nifty 50 classic focal length at an aperture of 1.2 is incredible. It means that my clients can pick locations that their pet is comfortable with that may not necessarily be the most visually pleasing per se, but having a bokeh at 1.2 that turns the background more into a color and a texture than the actual components of that background is just amazing.
It's true.
And of course, I can't not recommend the 24 to 70. I mean, you have a 24 to 70, you have a 70 to 200. There's a version 2 of the 24 to 70 as well, which is also lighter. And my gosh, is that focus sharp. I mean, I use Sony gear. And the fact that it retains all of the autofocus features, which is kind of the reason you invest in a Sony to begin with, especially their animal tracking.
Yes.
I mean, the fact that it maintains all of that is just incredible. It acts like a native because to me it is a native.
Yes, yes, that's true. Very true. Yeah. How about, have you tried their new 16 to 300 they just came out with?
I have. And I feel like a lot of people who photograph sports like agility would really, really benefit from that.
Right.
Simply because you don't want to distract an animal going through a competition. So you want to make sure that you're kind of placed in one area and you don't move from that area. But there could be obstacles that are near you, obstacles that are further away. So having a lens that is that versatile and allows you to capture as many obstacles as possible really is just amazing.
Yeah, that's a huge range there.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I mean, again, you're stuck in one place because if you keep moving around, the animals are going to get distracted, and that's unfair advantage for the ones that didn't experience you moving around.
Exactly.
So 16 to 300, I mean, you can get that teeter that's right next to you, and you can also get that jump on like kind of the far side.
Yes. That could even help me too, because I do concert photography, so like,
oh my God, that is a no-brainer.
I mean, I can move, from stage left to right, but that's about it. So I'm like capturing the action.
Oh, that is a no-brainer. And you can go to the soundboard if you need to.
Yeah.
You can go from the crowd shots all the way to kind of a zoomed in moment that's happening.
Yes.
I mean, I can't imagine shooting a concert without a lens that's versatile. I mean, or if you don't have versatile lenses per se, minimum of 2 cameras. I mean, there's no time to switch lenses.
Yeah, you said a fisheye lens on pets, but you said like just, talk with the client, I guess, and see.
Yes, I'm a big believer in doing the consultation before either accepting a shoot or showing up to do a shoot, because you do need to find out a lot about the animal that you are working with, because some might be kind of afraid of camera equipment, in which case you have to adapt how you do things.
Right.
It's also a good idea to just explain to an owner what a photo shoot process is. For example, when I'm doing portrait sessions, I always kind of consult and tell them to take their dog on a very long walk right prior to the session, so that when I come in, the energy level is not only lower, I'm just less of an exciting feature for that animal, or if I am the exciting feature, they settle down a lot faster. Because, I mean, it is weird. You have a stranger that's coming to your home, or if they're coming to your studio, you're going to a park, it is still a new environment and a new experience that can be very difficult to train a dog to. So I'm always kind of telling them, get your animal mentally stimulated, play games or give them toys or play with them, and try to time it out to be relatively close to when you're going to do the photo shoot, because that just helps them be a lot more cooperative. To talk about kids, it's kind of the same thing. You keep them very well stimulated, so that when you do need them to do something that maybe isn't as fun for them, they'll be a lot more cooperative at that point.
Very, very
As well as just keeping everything very, very positive for everyone, because I want every animal to walk away with it being a positive experience, because the next time they come in, they'll remember that experience and be, again, very cooperative or excited or just kind of enjoying themselves. I think so many people think about the human component of photographing animals, of keeping the owner happy, when the actual purpose is to keep the animal happy. In my opinion.
Otherwise, you're not going to get good pictures, right?
No, it's like you want them to be comfortable with you. You want them to be comfortable with your equipment. I'm a very big believer in, I put my camera on the ground and allow the animal to come over with the camera on and check it all out, sniff it. Sometimes I'll even do just the clicking sound, so they kind of get used to that, and it's less of a terrifying thing, because when you think about it, you're a small little dog and suddenly you have this giant eyeball pointing directly at you.
Right. Yeah,
that can be a little
scary.
Yeah, so.
Great pointers. Wow, so you started making money at 15.
I did. I mean, it wasn't a lot.
Starts.
But you start slow and you kind of dip your toes in, and that's why I'm also a believer in kind of learning the business side of photography as well. Because this is incredible. This is the primary reason I do this, of course, but if you want to kind of thrive in that field, you really do need to learn the business side of things as well. And that ranges from everything from proper investments to make, to customer service, to running the admin side of a company. So it's all the mundane, not as fun things. Although I don't mind the customer service part. I really love meeting people. So I know some can say that's the not fun side of things, but I personally love it. The not fun side of things for me is billing and admin. And doing your taxes. So.
I agree.
But if you start learning young, then by the time you're really dependent upon that income, the idea is that you've already kind of established a system for yourself, so it makes it a little bit easier.
That's very true. And you mentioned you photograph all pets at this point?
I do. I also work with conservation facilities and photograph exotic canids as well. Good friends of mine in San Diego have a conservation facility with foxes, wolves, coyotes, jackals, and do a lot of education surrounding those animals and their importance to the ecosystem and why we should be protecting those species. So I use photography a lot to kind of educate the public and educate the world on animals like that. It's kind of similar to why National Geographic has such a prevalent force within conservation, because they've exposed people to a side of animals that they might not have seen before and kind of completely qualms any sort of myths and disbeliefs about those creatures. So I find that photography is also a very, very powerful tool for advocacy.
100%.
To kind of educate on so many different facets of our natural world. And so when you're photographing pets, you use lights and all that as well? Only in studio. Everything that you see outdoors, it's all natural light. I have attempted in the past with generators and stuff like that, but I found that it was kind of unnecessary in terms of what I do. There's plenty of pet photographers who do incredible work with flashes and whatnot, but I feel like my style is a little bit more natural when it concerns them being outside. But in the studio, absolutely. I love my 3-point lighting. It is a big thing that I do.
3 points.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I always do my little front light as a big diffuser, and then usually have pavo tubes from Nanlite as my side lights.
Oh, okay.
And my party trick is that I always change them into a color. So part of my customer service is when someone comes into my studio, I immediately ask, "What's your dog's favorite color?"
Aww.
Which always strikes them off guard. They're like, "What?
Yeah.
My dog has a favorite color?" Some people actually know exactly. They go, "My dog is purple. My dog is teal." And then others go, "I never even thought about that." So at that point, I ask them what their favorite color is.
Love it.
And if they can't answer that question, because I've had that a couple times, I set the pavo tubes to rainbow. And just let them cycle through colors and photograph the animals
so cool.
with a rim light and a color, just because I found that it's kind of a unique offering and just adds a little bit of like fun and liveliness to the shot.
Yeah, that's so cool. Very cool. Oh, yeah. Do you like having your picture taken?
No. I like the cookies I get.
Oh, cookies.
That's also a big thing I push, is constantly reward your pet. Whether it's a dog, a cat, a horse, I always say, bring treats.
Yes.
Constantly reward, because every single time that animal exhibits a behavior that you want in front of the camera, you have to reward them.
Right.
That's how you kind of mark the behavior and condition them to, oh.
Right.
It's the only way I got her ears to actually stay up in front of cameras, because the first thing she does when she sees the camera is ears flat. And then I say she looks like a fish because she has budgie eyes. But
is that like a shy feature? Like when,
or the I don't want to sit here and I don't want to do this. It's very the expressive, I don't want to be here. But constantly throwing treats at her every time she put her ears up and just like, here's a cookie. And her ears are down, she goes, get a cookie. The second the ears go up, here's a cookie. And kind of keeping it a very positive flow.
I love that. That's so cool.
So I do also during the consultation tell them to feed their pets less prior, so that they are even more motivated.
Smart.
So I usually don't say don't feed them, because you also don't want an animal that's ravenous because they are so hungry, but I'm like, feed them less. Or half of what they would normally get, so that they feel more motivated to work for those treats.
Yeah.
I mean, I've, funny enough, actually had some people feed the breakfast or the dinner during the shoot. Like, a pet would do something good, and they're like, here's half. And they're like, pet's doing good, here's another bit.
Okay.
It does work.
Okay.
I mean, some people use it as a dog training method to kind of work for their food.
Okay.
So
That works.
I'm like, but again, the consultation becomes so important, because you got to find out about the animal that you're photographing and what they're like, what their interests are,
Yes.
if anything bothers them.
What bothers her?
Brooms. That has nothing to do with photo shoots, but funny enough, she does have one thing that triggers her. No idea why. It is the laughing stock of everyone who hears about it. But during the holidays, she hates anything that looks like Santa. We have tried everything from people dressed up as Santa but not having the beard. No response. People with the long beard but dressed in normal clothes. No response. When you have the full ensemble, we lose our minds. Something about it's inflatable Santas, it's Santa figurines.
Wow.
So if I do any sort of holiday setup with her, I have to make sure there is no Santa prop in the area.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So that's why she got the nickname during the holidays of being the Grinch. She hates Christmas. But we do not like Santa.
Okay.
But every animal has some weird thing. I mean, she came from the shelter, so I don't actually know anything she's been exposed to, and it's very much dependent on how an animal interprets something.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we look at Santa as, if anything, a jolly fun figure, but we have no idea what mental process a dog went through and how they might see that same thing. So we just kind of,
it's very true.
no Santa for you. But every other prop is fine. No problems with the reindeer, no problems with the elves, nothing. Just Santa.
That's funny.
So no Santa photos for us.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us today here, Anabel. It's very nice to hear about how you got started in pet photography, hear a little bit about you, and we're excited for this weekend working together.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited, and honestly, the weather could not be better. Like, I'm walking outside and I go, this is most beautiful day. So
Yeah.
thank you for having both of us.
Yes.
I mean, big thanks for the fact that they welcomed this little monster into the store as well.
We're in Colorado, and we love dogs. We love all animals, but dogs are probably the number one pet.
Well, it's a good thing I have a dog model tomorrow, huh?
Yes, yes. And thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys later.
Bye.